What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. It is the first of our two-part in Sharpie 2024 NBA Awards podcast. We're going to do the actual awards, and then we will get into, on a separate podcast, we'll have all defense, all rookie, all NBA, and then we'll probably go through, I don't know if we'll split that up, but we'll go through our win total over-unders, see what we missed on, which teams exceeded expectations, but we're dealing with the 8 year-end awards that matter most, unless you don't care about Clutch Player of the Year, Executive of the Year, and Coach of the Year. I would say Coach of the Year is a big one. So if you don't care about Clutch Player or Executive of the Year, there's 6 awards that you should care about. Before we get started, and also an exciting element. We did, if you were a member of our Discord or follow us on Twitter or on YouTube, we have our listeners. They picked their own ballots, their own winners. And so we will have those results at the end of each category that we have. After Grant and I reveal our picks, all of our ballots are going 5 players deep. We'll get into, I'm sure, other names. They only go 3 players deep, I think, for every award except MVP officially. They go 3 players deep. MVP goes 5. We went 5 players deep because as a visual aid on YouTube, that just worked out better for the setup that I concocted. First and foremost, though, Grant, how the heck are you?
I'm doing terrific. And I'll take this one. The reason we're not doing all NBA and all defense and all rookie is because I did not prepare for it. And that's my fault. So I'm feeling chagrined. That's how I'm feeling right now.
You should never feel chagrined. It just means that we have content planned for the following week. That'll be fun. These, I will say, there's probably like a couple things of mine because we're recording this about a week before the end of the regular season. Some stuff could change, but like for the most part, these are just in Sharpie. And we did record a pretty extensive podcast on our criteria previously, like a month or two ago. So we're going to try and keep this pace because we've laid out our base cases. And by now, like, when you get to Rookie of the Year or MVP, like you kind of understand what the deal is there. So that's not to say this won't be nuanced or fun because we always do make it, but just as a heads up there. I'm going to let you, I might need a minute to throw it up on screen, but I'm going to let you, choose where we go. You did have us start off with, interestingly enough, last time, the MVP race first. So are you going to do that again?
I think we go with the big one first. I think we do it again. Let's go MVP.
All right. I mean, that's also, if we're being honest, that is like kind of one of the easier ones, but let me throw that bad boy up on. Look at that. Not fancy at all, but
I love it. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to, so we're starting with the big award. I think we just start from 1, right? And just move down because that's how the discussion is going to flow anyway. So
so I think even in certain instances, this being one of them, by the way, like you can kind of just talk about like if there's just names in blocks that are going to appear on. Like is there a very clear top 4 to you when it comes to the MVP race, or no?
It's like beyond clear. I don't think you can put a 5th person in there in any kind of serious way. And really, like, the guy in first, I think, is in a tier by himself. And then you could probably put the next 3 together. But for sure, there's 4 real MVP caliber candidates. And then after that is just kind of, we're going to pick a 5th guy, but 5th through like 9th or 10th, I think is almost like, you can't really argue about it.
So let's do this. You reveal your top 4. I'll reveal my top 4, and then we'll get into the nuances there in that order.
Okay, perfect. My top 4 are Nikola Jokic, SGA, Giannis, and Luka.
That is those are the same 4 locks that I have. My order differs though in the sense that our top 2 are the exact same. But I have Luka 3 and Giannis 4th. I think there's been some slippage from Giannis defensively lately, and just Luka's been a man alive on the offensive end. Jokic, to me, though, let's start at the top here. In a race that I think I wouldn't fault you at this point if you made the case for Luka or SGA, but in a race that should be closer, he just feels like the pick to me.
Yeah, I think so. What it comes down to for me, just a couple things. Like there are advanced catch-alls that have SGA as more valuable still. Some of the stuff I pulled together, it's a couple days old, but just as an example, like dunks and threes estimated wins, which is a cumulative stat, has SGA ahead of Jokic. And in fact, Luka and Giannis are ahead of Jokic by that metric. So I don't know how much stock you put in that for that reason. You know, in EPM, which is more of a rate stat, also from dunks and threes, SGA is ahead of Jokic again. You know, but then it just pick a different one like VORP and estimated Raptor. Jokic is first. To me, it like whatever. The two things it comes down to are one, I do think the massive net rating swing that Jokic has, which does account for like how bad Denver is without him. Uh, it's persuasive to me because it indicates value to that specific team.
Mhm.
SGA, you know, again, in on an individual stats based case, like is for sure in the conversation. I guess you could pick him depending on what you value, but the value to his team is just greater for Jokic. And then it gets fuzzier, and it's just like, well, Jokic has a level of control over the game that no other human being has. Like, there's no solve for him where there might be for SGA. It's just like it's just that it's a different category. I think so. Like, it's comfortably Jokic for me, even though I acknowledge there are some statistical arguments that favor SGA and to be honest, like a couple of the other guys further down the ballot.
I struggle with when you go with SGA to say that the value he brings defensively exceeds the gap that still exists between him and Nikola Jokic on offense. As a scorer, SGA might have him beat, but like Nikola Jokic is a hell of a scorer himself. I said this on our last podcast, so I won't belabor it, but like there is no better optimizer of the talent around him in the league than Nikola Jokic. And you mentioned the net rating swing. Here's why that's especially persuasive to me. We're not talking about a team that's not a contender. So even in previous years, which that, again, it's a fair case to make it, a propped up Jokic's, I think, what was that, his first MVP or maybe a second, whatever. This is the title favorite, or no worse than the second most likely team to win a title. And he has the largest just net rating swing in the league among players that actually play. So we're not talking about the difference between a really crappy team becoming good. We're talking about him elevating the Nuggets into a tier where only one other team in the league exists right now. And so to me, like that is just, if you want the case to stop there, that's fine. But I'm with you on the level of control that he exerts over a game. And there's just the way he thinks it. You've said it. There's no solve for him.
Yeah. And then I guess, so would you put SGA like number 2 with the bullet, and then maybe Luka and Giannis are a tier below? We're not necessarily tiering, but I kind of view those three, you know, you could put those three in any order and I wouldn't really fight you too hard on it.
I think I'm with you there, but I will just note, like when you say, and I'm not a fan necessarily of this discussion because it's like, it's kind of saying the best two-way player in the league is who? And it's like, well, what are we really saying here? It felt like a way to just give Kawhi Leonard at one point his flowers when LeBron was the best player in the league.
Yeah.
And so, but Shea has a case as the best two-way player. It's him. There's Giannis. Who else is part of that? Like
Kawhi. I mean, you would put Kawhi there. I mean, I think I probably had Kawhi 5th the last time we did this. I could, and like, honestly, I could put him there again. You want to give our 5th guy just because, or would you want to stick with these 4 for a little bit?
So who's your 5th guy? Let's
I have Tatum. And like, even saying that, I feel like I'm acknowledging, I'm just like best player, best team. I'm best player, best teaming this thing. But I think like you could definitely talk me into Kawhi. That gets harder with how shitty the Clippers have been for like the better part of the last, like, I don't know, month plus. You could talk me into like, you could put KD there, I guess. There was a minute where Halliburton was there before the hamstring.
Halliburton seemed like, it felt like the top 5 was sewn up at one point.
Yeah.
You remember?
But no, I went with Tatum. I just, you know, he's in that chunk of like the next 5 to 7 players, and just the success of his team. He's had a good year. I don't know if it's his best year, but I don't know. I didn't really think too hard about it because like this is such a top 4 thing.
So I think that's a very, I think that's a very reasonable case. There are 3 players to me that I think should be in the conversation for top 5. There's Tatum, there is Kawhi Leonard, and then there's the player who I picked. Would you care to venture a guess as to who that player is?
I'm not gonna bullshit you. I'm looking at the sheet that has your player on it.
So it's Jalen Brunson.
I will say Jalen Brunson.
He has, so like this is like, and this shit matters when you look at the level of like the difficulty on what he's had to do with the Knicks this year because of injuries, or just in general, because their offense still, whether you have Julius Randle, even if you have OG Anunoby, or when you had Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, like it is so dependent on him.
Yeah.
There are 70 plus players who've played at least 2,000 minutes this year. Only Bam, DeRozan, KD, Brandon Ingram, and Nikola Jokic. By the way, that's hysterical that Jokic is there. Post lower shot qualities. And then there are over 400 players who have appeared in at least 25 games this season. Only 5 match the share of Brunson's made buckets that go unassisted from both outside and inside the arc. Luka, Shea, James Harden, Damian Lillard, and Fred VanVleet. That was actually a surprise to see FEV pop up there. And the fact that Jalen Brunson is just averaging 28, 6.5 on reasonable efficiency is wild. Turnover rate is still elite. This is the thing that really swung it for me. When he's on the court, the Knicks offense is in the 93rd percentile. When he's off, they're in the 14th percentile. That drop is matched by only one player in the league, and it's Jokic. I'm not saying Jalen Brunson is the second best offensive player in the league. And when you get into all NBA, I think it's a different discussion because MVP is more about value and impact, where I think with all NBA, you can look at like more individual just stuff. Whereas this is the way I frame it. Tatum has a stronger case than Jalen Brunson for first team all NBA. I think Jalen Brunson has the stronger MVP case. And that's just why I'm putting him here. And if you're going to say, oh, so you're penalizing Jason Tatum because his team was healthier, he has a better supporting cast, I'm not penalizing him. I'm giving Jalen Brunson a nod for uplifting what would be an offensive atrocity without him into an elite offense statistically, even when it doesn't look pretty with him on the court. And I would argue, I would need to see the data on this. I bet you there might be 3 or 4 players who have seen more double teams than him this season.
Right. No, you said uplift. The thought that came to mind when you mentioned Brunson and the context of his team is like he has. I would be hard pressed to find someone that has a heavier lift night to night than he does, just because of the talent surrounding him, because of the way the Knicks play. And like, I mean, there are definitely, if you care about the numbers, like he's right there between like LeBron and Durant, and just like a decimal behind Kawhi in estimated wins. Like he's way up there in EPM. He's way up there in estimated Raptors. So like, it's not even just independent of his contextual value to the Knicks. And look, this is MVP. There's value there. So like his situation does matter, I think, more to your point here than it does in all NBA. Like he's got the statistical case next to the like, where is this team without him case. So I think that's a totally defensible pick there.
Are you ready to see what our audience chose?
I am excited. I hope the top 4 are there. That's all I care about.
Yeah. So Jokic, the Hardwood Knock listeners, audience, followers chose Jokic for 1, SGA 2, Luka 3, Tatum 4, and Giannis 5.
Tatum at 4 surprises me, even though I put him at 5. But
Kawhi Leonard also received some votes. I think there were some votes for Kevin Durant as well. Jokic was the overwhelming winner here. It wasn't even close.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, like, what was the last straw poll? I think he had like 85 of the 100 first place votes among polled voters. That's just, I think he's going to win it running away, which is like, it's too bad for SGA and Luka and Giannis. Like wrong stretch of years to have awesome seasons. Okay, cool. All right. Well, at least we got the top 2 at least in lockstep.
Which award do you want to go to now?
Let's do Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow, you're really just knocking out all the.
I like to top load it. You know, you lose. What's the statistic? You lose a huge percentage of listeners and viewers after the top. So let's just give the people let's give the people what I want. How about that?
Give the people what I want. Yeah, take a. So let's do the same thing again. Do you want to? Well, I think we both can just reveal our first one. We both have the same number 1 guy, which is Rudy Gobert, and I'm just trying to think of like, can you come up with a case for someone other than Rudy Gobert?
I think you're stretching really hard. You got to kind of want to not give it to him. So like, let me ask you a question. As I was putting this together, it occurred to me, like, is it fair to say that for Defensive Player of the Year, your team to win it, your team almost has to be a top 5 defense? Like it just, because if you're that good, you know, that's the level you've got to be at to win Defensive Player of the Year, is like you alone are, think of Gobert in Utah for all those years. Like you are the reason that this defense is as good as it is. And like that level has to be super high. Is that fair? Or
Yeah.
they're generally speaking, right? So like, I think that's how some of these further down ballot guys, how you justify moving them out. But that's just what makes Gobert's case. He is not the sole reason, but to me is clearly the biggest reason the Timberwolves have all year been like far and away the best defense in the league. All the rim protection numbers are absurd, like 48% field goals allowed inside 6 feet. That's the best of anybody that defends any number of shots. 98th percentile knocking down opponent rim frequency when he's on the floor. Like opponents shoot 43% against him anywhere on the floor, which is absurd. He can defend out on the floor.
Yeah, the way he's been, that was like a big, not a swing factor, but I think a big part of this is just like he's not just someone who operates in this base defense. Like he has come out and wreaked havoc in those situations as well.
So this wasn't, I tried to really, I wanted to make, it seemed too obvious. So I did a bunch of research and wanted to make sure that it's clearly Gobert. I just think it's like, it's as clear to me as MVP, maybe clearer.
Were you as confident in your choice, your runner up, excuse me?
No, I was not. My number 2 is Victor Wembanyama. And I'll just say my number 3 was Bam. I could flip flop this like over the next week if I thought about it more. But Wemby just, he's got the advanced metrics case. He's like 6th last time I looked in defensive estimated plus minus, allows 53% inside 6 feet on 8 field goals defense, allows 45% all over the floor. Actually takes a bunch of charges. He's drawn 9 charges, which is the most of any of these big guys we're going to consider. And just like the disruption, the ridiculous block totals. I mean, like in terms of like the eye test, like, I mean, I don't know what else you got to say.
Yeah, there's like, so I have Wemby on my ballot, but he comes in at 4th. So I will show you I have Adebayo number 2, Anthony Davis number 3, and then Wemby number 4. The Wemby stuff is just like, it goes beyond. I mean, he leads the league in stocks and then blocks per game, like by a comically large margin. So that stuff is great. But there's like a real IQ there where he can show restraint and patience, but then he's also just terrifying. And he really just butchers the entire, he butchers the existence of entire offenses just by virtue of being on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's
like the guys that don't attempt layups like on breakaways because they know he's behind them. Like that's nobody else does that.
He fucks up their entire process just by virtue of existing. And so he and by the way, it's not, everyone can look at where the Spurs are defensively. They're in the bottom 10 of points allowed. They're in like the 80th percentile with Wemby on the floor. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to have him. I think there's a lot of debates. After Gobert, for me, it's pretty open-ended. Bam Adebayo, I feel like over the years, I've gotten more appreciative of the players that are juggling so many different things. And Cooper Moorhead over at Heat.com wrote about all the different coverages that Bam has had to handle this year, whether it's zone, whether it's drop, the stuff that he's doing. Like he's not switching nearly as much. Like that was always something, a hallmark of his. Now he's playing in drop so much. Now he's mastered, his rim protection numbers aren't great, but he's played a lot better statistically in drop. And when you watch the Heat, what can make their defense so elite or so stingy is just Bam doesn't really have any weak points anymore. And he covers up for just so much that I appreciate that. And then it's the same thing with Davis, to where I think Wemby's physical and even like IQ gifts, they help him be so impactful. But Davis is like the stuff he does where he has to be all over the floor. It's not because of his physical tools that he's able to be in all these places at once. It's because it is because of his physical tools, but it's just like he has to move around more and cover up for more than Wemby does. And that's when you look at their kind of defensive supporting cast, they might be comparable, or I think you could argue like, is the second best defender on the Spurs better than the second best defender on the Lakers? And the answer could be yes there. The Lakers are in the 70th percentile of points allowed per possession with Anthony Davis on the court. And I think just the breadth of the assignments that he covers, and then you're looking at just someone who has played more minutes this season in total, that really matters to me. And so I know that the Lakers defense has tapered off a little bit, and Anthony Davis has these weird on-off splits. But I look at him and what he's able to do. And when you watch him, it's just similar to Bam for me, where it feels like he has to adjust or account for so many different things, where a lot of the times Wemby's doing the same, but not doing the same, maybe in part because the stakes are lower or just because he's so gargantuan and long that it feels different. So I'm not trying to penalize him there. Again, I think he's a perfectly reasonable selection at number 2, but looking at Adebayo and Davis and the workload that they shoulder and their ability to cover up for so much, to handle so much, to try all these different coverages or have to do all these different coverages, and then just combine that with their general uplifting. That's what kind of brought it home for them for me.
So I really struggled with Adebayo and Wemby. Like I think I'm going to leave it how it is, but Adebayo at 2 is totally justifiable. And I just want to say, like, to him, the knock you hear is, well, he's not a rim protector on the level of these other guys in this class. And I think what's borne out in the numbers is that he just does it in a different way by being the best point of attack defensive center in the league, and that we've seen in a really long time. Like, as a switch defender, there is not a matchup that, he cannot handle. So like he deters rim pressure by just cutting it off, like out on the perimeter. So, and again, like opponents shoot like 4% less often at the rim when he's in the game, which is like right there with, that's a better number than Wembanyama, for example, puts up in terms of like percentage of shots at the rim deterred, basically. Gobert's on his own level. It's like a 5% decline, but to just Adebayo, like, I'm not persuaded by the knock that you hear the most, which is like, he's not a shot blocker. He's not like the towering guy. He just does it differently. And for Davis, I have Davis 4th on my ballot. Some of the on-off stuff is like a little, it gives you pause because the Lakers are more of like a mid-pack defense. The on-off stuff says they're not that much better with him. You got it. Again, this is where you always got to go to. Opponents shoot like 5% better from 3 when he's on the floor, and that's just skewing all the numbers. I don't think he has anything to do with that. So, and he's an eye test guy too. Like the way that he can dominate games and not be attacked on switches makes guys just not shoot on drives. Like he's just, I think Davis has to be
the best like recovery defender in the league still, to where it's like if he's on the inside, but you need him to run out and contest a shot in the corner, like that was lifted up from the break, or vice versa, where it's like, oh, he was out on the perimeter, now he needs to get back down to the rim to contest or dissuade that shot.
Yeah. So our 5th guys, do you want to give me yours or should I go here?
So yeah, why don't you go first?
All right. So this surprised me, but when I was just doing the numbers and just thinking about it, I have Chet Holmgren at 5, which is wild because that's 2 rookies now. And all you ever hear is rookies. I mean, he's a quote unquote rookie, but all you hear is rookies can't defend. They're never positives. You're lucky if they're break even. He's just he does a lot of the things that the players we've already discussed do. He's super mobile, really good shot blocker, is like gets dunked on, but goes up to block dunks all the time, is here for it. It rotates quickly. It's a lot of the same kind of like holds guys all over the floor to like a 45% field goal percentage. That's great. He holds it way down to 53% inside 6 feet. He's just like, he's not as like spectacular as like Wembanyama. He doesn't move like Adebayo does, but he kind of does a little bit of all those things. So I think he's done enough. You might knock him for defensive rebounding, but part of that's just because he's all over the floor to more than a lot of these other guys are. But I think he's been maybe the biggest reason, other than I guess SGA has to be considered as, the most disruptive OKC defender. But I think Chet is the best defensive player on the Thunder in terms of like total impact, even with Lou Dort too. They got a lot of them, but I think Chet matters the most.
That's an interesting pick. It doesn't feel, I guess I want to say I probably strongly disagree with it, to where it kind of feels like I don't think he's responsible for enough outside of his, I don't want to call it his comfort zone, but like outside of the base big man stuff, and he's not nearly as dominant. Is he shaping the defense in the same way that Gobert is? But again, I mean, the numbers are undeniable, and he slides his feet for a big man really well.
I think the issue with him is it's like, how different is he really from like Jared Allen, from like what Giannis can do, from I don't know, there's just a lot of other bigs that are similar impact, but I don't know. It felt right. But again, to me, this is a little like MVP where there was a top 4, I think, and then after that, you could kind of go a lot of different directions.
I did go a different direction. Can you guess who it is?
It's our guy. It's our.
You know who it is. It's Jalen
do.
Suggs. Just the ultimate disruptor. The pick sixes are cool, but the assignment difficulty he shoulders is massive, and he needs to. When I'm doing defensive player of the year, unless you're just as dominant as you are as a rim protector as Gobert, I value guys who can also kind of shut off the water at the source. Adebayo can do that. Davis can do that. Wemby can do that. Suggs does that, and just his ability to do it without fouling in droves, and he's a threat at every level and every capacity where it's, oh no, you can't really throw an entry pass or a kick out even though you're not being defended by him, because he will just teleport and erase those from existence. I think there's a lot of moving machinations in Orlando that accounts for their defense, but he is just the engine that drives everything to me. And I'm actually, just based off the all defensive stuff I've read and listened to, I'm surprised that he hasn't gotten more first team consideration or even back into the ballot defensive player of the year consideration. I mean, I think I read a couple things, and there were a couple, like, he didn't even make an all defense team, which I thought was fascinating.
If we had positions, I think you're obligated to put him on your first team.
That's a good point.
I think like that's and like we can talk about some of them further down the ballot. Like you've got Alex Caruso, you've got Derek White, you've got, like, I don't know, pick your Thompson, you've got a Chris Dunn, but like Suggs has played a ton relative to some of those guys, and I think it's just like the most complete backcourt defender in the league right now. Everything you said is right. He's also just like impossible to screen. He's super physical. He's physical and like in a way that like is effective without doing the Patrick Beverley thing where you've got 3 fouls in the first quarter. So I think he's the best guard defender in the league this year. I just think big guys matter more still. So we haven't really talked about this. The position thing, we'll put our teams together later, but it's going to be hard for some guards to crack it unless we just decide to do positions, because why not,
What do you make of that, by the way? I was listening to, I think it was the Low Post, where he said that Bill Simmons is just going to build his teams the old way and to account for positions. Do you like the position list switch or no?
Here's the problem. If we do that, either Bam or Wemby or Davis is not on a team, which is like, that feels wrong. Like, unless you really fudge it. I mean, those guys are all centers, like full stop. But you'd have to fudge it and be like, I guess Wemby is a power forward, and so it does get the best.
Just because we got to a point where like you were allowed to call Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic a forward, and it was just like, so that's what you're doing, then what is the point?
Well, the thing is, like, for all NBA, I think positionless makes more sense than it does for all defense.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that is logical, but that's just how I feel. Because I think the best defenders tend to be big guys, just because the impact is greater as a big guy than it's just like, if you have a league average center defensively, that's worse than having a league average guard defensively, and the reverse is true. So with all NBA, it's like, I think going positionless opens up more possibilities, where going positionless for all defense kind of closes possibilities, because it's harder for someone like Suggs to make it. I don't know. It's funky. I guess like it would almost be more fun to pick by position, honestly, because then we could talk more about like who's the best wing defender, who's the best point of attack guard defender, who's the best rim protector.
I'd probably be more in favor of it if they added a third all defense team, if you want to keep position.
Oh, yeah. No, I'd be down with that, because then you'd only have to fudge like one of these centers, one of these top 4.
By the way, interesting note, and I don't want to spoil our eventual all defense discussion, but at this rate, if Wemby is where he is, he will be the first rookie in NBA history to make first team all defense. We've had rookies make second team all defense, but Tim Duncan didn't do it.
That's insane. That's crazy. But like, I mean, he's gonna, right? I think he's gonna. I guess we'll see.
There were a couple surprises on the audience ballot. So Gobert at 1, Wemby at 2. So they were in lockstep with you. Herb Jones at 3. Anthony
Yeah.
Davis at 4, and then Derek White and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope were tied for 5th. I think there might have been a wave of Nuggets fans that voted.
I'm not here to say a bad word about KCP. I love KCP. Herb I get. But like again, if there's positions, I think he's a first teamer. But since there aren't, I can't quite get him there. But I mean, would you say he's the best wing defender this season? I'm trying to think who else I'd even put up there.
I guess if you're like not counting Suggs or Derek White as like wings, then
or Anunoby, because I mean,
he's not going to qualify, so I didn't even consider him. So yeah, I mean, you could say Jaden McDaniels, but I feel like there's been like he might have a second team case, but it feels like there's been some slippage there.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, look, I like the variety of the votes as opposed to ours, but yeah, all right. Look, we're in lockstep at the top at least as far as my ballot's concerned.
Where do you want to go next?
Oh man, should we let's do clutch player. I'm gonna pivot and just get this one out of the way because this is a stupid award. It is, right? I mean,
it's not like one that I'm super passionate about.
No,
I don't know if I'm like angry about it.
I'm not angry. I'm curmudgeonly.
So
all right.
Yeah, this is like the criteria for this one is just you dig into the clutch numbers, but there's a level for me, and I gave into it a little bit, but then it still ended up being names that I think most people would consider. There's like the anecdotal element where you're talking like game time being an actual thing is what I'm saying. So, who did you have as your? Actually, we both had the same number 1 guy, so I'm just going to reveal him right now. DeMar DeRozan again. They might as well just rename this the DeMar DeRozan Award.
Yeah, I mean, he has the anecdotal case you're talking about, plus the numbers. Like, we also have the same number 2 guy, which maybe put him up there since I'm going to reference him. All
right, I'll do that then.
So yeah, we both have Steph Curry at number 2. Curry actually has more clutch points as of that's the other thing with this award is it's hard to not just go to NBA stats and start looking at like who's played the most clutch minutes, who's got the highest plus minus in the clutch, who's made the most shots. It just becomes a very statistical thing. But DeRozan has the anecdotal case because you just can envision him hitting game winners all the time. And he has these flurries like late in games where he's just, scoring 8 points in the last couple minutes, like things like that.
And his ability just to get to the line in those situations is mind melting.
The league high 64 clutch free throws made, Dan.
I'll give you one better. This was, by the way, I think this is like, and both DeRozan and Steph pop up here in the final 2 minutes of one possession games. So where the differential is 3 points or fewer. Steph Curry leads the league in made shots. DeMar DeRozan is number 2. Yeah. But DeMar DeRozan has 41 free throws in the final 2 minutes of one possession games.
Wow.
That's fucking nuts.
Just a foul machine. That's incredible. Yeah. So and he's shooting, 50% from the field, doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but he's made half of them. And he's making 87% of the ungodly amount of free throws he gets. So Steph, I think, he's got more threes made than the next 2 guys combined in the clutch. The Warriors are this is the other thing. The Bulls are plus 91 last I looked in DeRozan's clutch minutes. But also some of the other guys, the Bulls just their whole team, their clutch plus minus is really good. So I don't know what to do with that. But the Warriors are plus 18 in Steph's clutch minutes, and they were negative for a long period during the year. I don't know what to do with that. Because it's just, he's got, what does he have to do with that? He's making every 3 he takes and scoring the most points. It's clearly something else that is hurting the Warriors clutch net rating. It's not him. I guess you'd point to some of his turnovers maybe, but not enough to move the needle. I don't know. You have anything to say about those guys, or you want to give your number 3?
We can go to number 3, which apparently it was different from your number 3. He's going to win MVP. His name is Nikola Jokic. I think understatedly, when you look at specifically the past half decade or so, one of the most underrated clutch players in general. Here is everybody, and it's kind of a spoiler because some of these other guys will appear on my list, but there's he just has in just regular clutch minutes, he has 18 assists to go along with 41 made shots. And do you know every other player in the league to match that number of assists and made shots in clutch play?
Ooh, is one of them Kobe White?
There is nobody. There's only Jokic.
Trick question. Damn it.
It was just That's and like look, the splits are fine. 38.1% in the clutch from three, shooting over 60% on twos, 33 or 41 at the foul line. That's 80.5%. The man is just a fucking machine.
I don't have Jokic at 3. I'm not going to change it. I probably should change it. I have Dame at 3, but I had a Jokic stat that I found too, which was hilarious. You said 58% in the clutch is what his field goal percentage is.
I think his field goal percentage. He's over 60% from two, though.
Okay. So I just had him at 58.6%, like field goal percentage, old school number. That's better than basically everyone who plays any significant clutch minutes, except for the one and only Jalen Williams, who is shooting, I'm going to get real close to the mic, 69% from the field in the clutch, 58% from three on 39 total shots. He is 7 of 12 from deep. Jalen Williams could win every award if the Thunder would just let him cook. Anyway, yeah, I have Dame at 3. I don't know what you need to say. He makes clutch shots. Like, he hasn't been as accurate as some of these other guys, but the Bucks are, plus 78 in 134 clutch minutes for Dame. He's got 26 clutch assists. Like, he's just right there. So after that, I have Jokic at number 4, and I feel terrible about it, but I'm not going to change it now.
Yeah, so I ended up having Dame at 5 with SGA at 4. He feels like he has more anecdotal victories this year, like, than anybody else, which is big moments, remembering big shots that he's hit. It is kind of like Damian Lillard's season has been so uneven. So the fact that he is ranked so, like, could win, if you wanted to vote for him to win this award, I'm not really going to give you a ton of pushback. But like, these two have been, I mean, when you adjust the baseline so that you're not just at Jokic's level, but here's everyone who's made as many shots and dished as many assists in the clutch as Dame and Shea, and it's those two and Jokic are in their own company. I will say LeBron comes close. He's hit one fewer shot than those guys. I actually considered him to throw him into the top 5, but because, like, his ability to draw fouls too, but yeah. I ultimately didn't. But both Shea and even Damian Lillard, 54 free throw attempts in the clutch, made 52 of them. That's 96.3%. That's, like, pretty bonkers. So the fact that they're able to, you see them change their play style, but the fact that these guys are able to score at all these different levels, and unlike DeRozan, who I still think he deserves to win this award, like, he's not the every level scorer that Damian Lillard and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be, and they also maintain, just like DeMar DeRozan, their ability to get to the foul line. These dudes have been absolutely unreal in the clutch this season, and like, they all have the plus minus statistics to support it. But speaking of, like, the plus minus stuff, it is why, by the way, I'm excited for you to reveal your 5th place guy.
Yeah, it's Kobe White, and it's just like, he has a league high plus 103 in a league high 183 clutch minutes and a league high 28 assists in the clutch. The shooting numbers aren't as good. He's like 45% overall, 30% from deep, making over 80% of his free throws. But, like, I don't know. It's like, this is a small sample size award by definition. So I think maybe it made sense to me to go with the guy who has the largest sample of the small sample, and just, he's played the most and his plus minus is the biggest. It's hard to divorce him from DeRozan, and, like, even like Vucevic has a good, like, so just like, if you're on the floor for the Bulls late, it's hard to know who's doing it all. But I think White, just sheer volume, and he's clearly the prime facilitator. If DeRozan is the prime scorer, like, White is generating shots for everybody else in the clutch, and that matters too. So I thought I'd just throw him up there.
So I put together my ballot before I went through the results of what we got from the audience. I was a little bit surprised that they were in exact lockstep with me when it came to the names.
Wow.
DeRozan at 1, SGA at 2, Steph at 3, Jokic at 4, and Dame at 5. I feel validated for the most part.
Either that or you're a bigger influencer than you thought, because you've just created.
It's a testament to how smart our listeners and followers are, I guess, or how wrong we all collectively are together. But 4 of the 5 names on your list show up, plus all 5 of, like, that's, and this isn't like the MVP where the race is just a little bit more, even though there's not set criteria, it's less ambiguous overall than clutch player.
Yeah, I agree. This is one where you could pick a deeper cut and because it's super easy to just overlook anyone that doesn't have an absurd plus minus in the clutch. Like, you kind of just filter those guys out. But
we did have a lot of votes, by the way, on this that said not picking someone because this award shouldn't exist too.
Those are my people. All right, let's do it. Let's do the next one. Do you want to bang out executive of the year, since that's just next over on the sheet here?
That's my favorite. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Yeah,
you love transactions. You love the salary cap. This one has not. Well, that's not true. I did bring someone in that did not have even on my down ballot considerations last time we did these. I think we don't agree on the top. Well, we're pretty close. Obviously, number one, Brad Stevens, right? Like the Celtics team that he put together, the trades they made were bold. Theoretically thinned the team because they traded like 4 rotation guys for 2. But it's just like the team that this team is already won 60 games and it would not have done this if they hadn't made the changes they did. So, I don't know who else you would possibly consider a number one here.
Yeah, and look, it wasn't a no-brainer. The Porzingis trade specifically wasn't a no-brainer. I think you look after the fact and the Drew Holiday trade, it's okay, you do that. But I saw someone saying, I guess because of what happened with Marcus Smart and Robert Williams III this year, that they got all these guys for passing peanuts. And it's like, I mean, like, no, those dudes were important when healthy. And the fact that they weren't healthy this year and Smart didn't play well, I get it. These weren't easy decisions to make.
No.
And so to do that and to just have a team that's like first all time in net rating, I think at this point or whatever it is, I think he's the only answer here. Yeah. Unless you're going to look at it through like very Homer goggles. I don't know who else you go with. We do have the same like 2 and 3, but we have them in a different order. So I'll throw those up there. I have Raphael Stone at 2. You have Leon Rose at 3. I have Leon Rose at 3. You have Leon Rose at 2. I have Raphael Stone. You have Raphael Stone at 3. It can go in either order, but I do ultimately think we kind of have to factor in that, okay, OG Anunoby's injured, even though that trade made a ton of sense. And the Dante DiVincenzo contract still looks great. The Deuce McBride contract looks fantastic. The trade you made for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, that hasn't panned out. But then how do you juxtapose that with, well, Quentin Grimes is done for the season. They couldn't hit a 3 for Detroit. I just look at what Stone did. Like the Amen Thompson pick, I guess that was technically a no-brainer, but given the immediate aspirations they had, it wasn't necessarily that. But beyond that, you have the Dylan Brooks getting Fred VanVleet, even having Jeff Green for you in the locker room. This is a team, and I think I like the move. They went and they got Steven Adams, and like for next year's purposes, that's going to be something that helps them. And so I think you look at this team and what it turned into this year. I do wonder if I'm maybe giving him some credit for stuff that falls outside this calendar. But like the Rockets, like even you have to include hiring Ime Udoka in here just because they turned into a top 5 defense.
Yeah, I think that's right. I wonder if maybe I'm giving Leon Rose like some credit for things outside of this year, right? Because
I think the Deuce McBride contract. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't remember.
So it is, they signed him basically immediately after the trade. They signed him to a 3-year extension that is going to be worth, I think it's 3 years and 11 million is the number that he signed for.
Why did he sign that?
3 years and 13 million. I mean, he wasn't playing at the time. And by the way, it's declining. So it'll be at its highest at 4.7 million next year when he's 3.3% of the salary cap. That contract looks like we have to see how he plays next season, but if you're ranking the best value contracts for teams, not players, obviously, in the NBA, he's going to be up there because he's played out of his mind right now.
Isn't what he's given them over the last several weeks worth like 10 million of that?
I think you also need to credit him. I almost wish I had him too now, because even thinking back to like the way they negotiated the Josh Hart extension. So like him not signing a brand new contract that really inflated his salary this season, that'll start to kick in next year. It helps you bring in these other moving pieces, specifically having the money to make sure that you're going to sign Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah. So just a lot of good business, but just looking at the way that the trades panned out,
yeah, that's
the availability of OG Anunoby factors into it. And so I still would make that move if I'm the Knicks, but I gave Stone the nod because the Rockets, the progress they made from this season to last, is really, it's a testament to some of the talent they already had, but like there are a lot of levers that were pulled to bring in new players, bring in a new coach that are responsible for it as well. Cam Whitmore being brave enough, you could say it was a no-brainer. How many GMs passed on Cam Whitmore?
That's the thing, well, like 19 of them, right, or whatever it was. I think if you're gonna knock Rose at all, which I don't want to do, I have him 3rd. It's like, what happens if Brooke Lopez doesn't back out? Like,
Oh, Stone, yeah. It's like, did you know what you clearly didn't know what you had in Şengün? Yeah.
well, but then like flip it again. Like, I don't know, maybe Jalen Green does this all year if he has a floor spacing center most of the time. Like, you don't know. Like, it might have been, but still, it's
Does
like
he?
they wanted
We've seen
Brooke
enough of
Lopez.
Jalen Green to know that like months October through January
Right,
are
right.
always a little iffy.
I feel like I'm skewing too far towards like, I'm almost like apologizing for being so skeptical of Jalen Green, and I'm going too far now. I'm like, I think I'm over my skis a little bit on him in ways that make me uncomfortable. So
I'm
gotta
going to give you my 4 and 5 because I'm
Okay.
very interested to hear about your 4. I have Sam Presti and Kobe Altman.
Mhm.
Really quickly with the Cavs and Kobe Altman, you look at just the roster they built where it's almost been better like to navigate injuries than it has been at full strength, which is why it gets awkward when maybe we should do coach of the year next. When you talk about JB Bickerstaff, and he's done a better job coaching this team when they're shorthanded versus when they have all their main guys available.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Max Strus was a great signing. Craig
Mhm.
Porter Jr. was an excellent find. Bringing Karis LeVert back was not a no-brainer decision, and he's in the 6th man of the year discussion. So I think you need to credit him for that. And it felt like this year there just wasn't, not to poo-poo all over his case here, but it just felt like there weren't a ton of great options. Like if you wanted to go with the Clippers front office for the Harden trade, or vice versa with Morey for opening up the cap flexibility in Philly. I very much did consider Michael Winger / Will Dawkins in Washington just to really rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
I just don't think they did enough at the trade deadline. And I still maintain the Hornets, some of those picks that they got, like, does Mitch Kupchak like come in here? How does this work? But I think Altman is someone who deserves something there. And then Presti, I know a lot of this stuff, the Gordon Hayward acquisition has not been gangbusters, but the fact that he is now traded 1st-round picks for these like higher end swaps, when you're looking at what happened with the Dallas trade at the deadline specifically, I think it's a very shrewd piece of roster building. And that's just in addition to like everything that they've already built up. And that, like, even like being able to use Micic to go get Gordon Hayward and to bring that guy into where you have, I guess, that veteran with size who can theoretically handle the ball and defer. I like the stuff, a lot of what they've done. Sorry to stumble my words here. It's been on the margins, but it's been very creative, and I think ultimately super important.
Yeah. So my 4, I didn't have anywhere near the ballot. It's like half of a joke, but also kind of not. It's Zach Kleiman, the Grizzlies top executive. And like, I think it's mostly fair to say the Marcus Smart trade was not a good one, but he was hurt for like the whole year. So whatever. This is about the Grizzlies played 31 different human beings this year, and that is an NBA record. And so just by definition, Zach Kleiman was like doing the most. Like he just had to go find guys. And they did like, look, who knows how much value you should put in late season or like lost season performances, but like Gigi Jackson looks like, I don't know what he's going to be, but he's going to be something. And that's hard to do in like what he was picked in the 40s, I think. The youngest player in the league, has had multiple high scoring games. Looks like he's, the big wing / combo forward type that everybody wants. And then Vince Williams Jr. is another guy that like just emerged as a starter, and they just had him. So I think like, I feel like you a little bit, where after really the top 3, it's kind of like, I don't know, man, there's just a lot of ways to go. I think just some acknowledgement there. And then Mike Dunleavy, I know like getting Pajemski where they got him, getting Trace Jackson Davis at the very end of the 2nd round. I think the Chris Paul trade to just get off the Poole contract looks better all the time, even though Paul has not been super helpful. I'm trying to think what else I just didn't move Dunleavy from where I had him when we did this a couple.
Not giving Klay Thompson the $20+ million.
Not giving Klay Thompson $40 million a year. You're going to get him for a fraction of that. So I think there's some other guys I had thought about. Presti, thought about Morey, thought about Winger and Dawkins, and I did have Kupchak still on my like way down ballot for the Brandon Miller pick. I mean, that's another one. That's another one.
Also, who the audience actually did end up voting for in their top 5, and someone I gave consideration to. Now I'm just wondering, like staring at the list, wondering if I didn't give enough consideration to. But our listeners' audience had Tim Connolly at number 4. So Stevens at 1, Sam Presti at 2, Leon Rose at 3, Connolly at 4, and then Nico Harrison at 5, which, I mean, I guess the way the Mavs were playing, it's kind of like, I'm not going to dump all over that by any stretch. It's panning out. I guess this is one, it's a regular season award though. And I guess like the Mavericks might have home court advantage in the playoffs. So it ends up panning out. I'm not gonna lie, that's not someone I gave, but like they brought in Dante Exum, Derek Jones Jr. Like they did make these. Even the Josh Green extension looks super reasonable, so that's totally fair. Tim Connolly though is interesting because you look at the Nickeil Alexander-Walker contract and the Naz Reid extension; those are two of the best team-friendly deals in the league right now. And then even now, think about the Mike Conley extension to get that hammered out. He's under 12 million the next 2 years per season. Those are big deals. And then there might be, I don't know how much you reward him for this, but is there value in I mean, also getting Monte Morris at the deadline is just sort of, if he's healthy, breaking case of emergency there. But is there also value in, okay, they didn't go through last year and then try and unmake some of the moves they already did. And they didn't necessarily chalk it up to, it was still risky, but they decided, hey, we didn't see enough of this team together. And so you stuck with it. And so there's a level of respectability in that. And the more I think about it, I'm kind of like, maybe he does deserve to be in my top 5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, look, I got Zach Kleiman in my top 5. You can definitely say
I'm sorry, that's egregious. I guess Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams, but it's just like, does that offset enough of what happened with the Marcus Smart trade?
No, but who cares? We got our top 3. That's all that really matters. Yeah, I think I did think about Nico Harrison, but then we've both said that like the Mavs trades, biggest of big pictures, are like still iffy, I think. So I don't know, but yeah, the results now are the trades were a success. Like that's just where we are. And like we do, I think, reward moves that are not obvious. I think that's like the Porzingis move for Boston is one of those. Trying to think what else, like just so like if you're gonna do it that way, then I guess like Nico Harrison like made a move that looked risky and maybe not smart and has turned out well, so like maybe extra bonus points there.
Just to look, this is just gonna, I'm just doing it's as a joke, but I'm also kind of serious. Shout out to our audience, they've officially changed my ballot, and I'm even gonna throw it with their color on there. Tim Connolly is now in the top 5 of my executive of the year rankings.
All right, look, you're really easily influenced. That's fine. We should probably do coach of the year next, right? Since we're kind of on the topic.
This is your show, so yeah, let's do coach of the year.
Let's do it.
So do you want to, who is your coach of the year, Grant?
My guy and your guy, Mark Daigneault, number 1. I don't know what you say. The second youngest team in the league has had him, or I haven't looked in the last couple of days, but definitely in the top 10, but were in the top 5 on offense and defense for a long time. Has them playing a distinctive style, like all the drive and kicks, drive, kick, until you either get a layup or a 3. I think he's one of the best, like just game to game, rotation and tactical adjustment makers in the league. I think the way that he's found ways to utilize guys that would otherwise be tricky to play, like other Jalen Williams and like Isaiah Joe, and just gets a lot out of everybody. The Thunder play hard. Like, I don't really know like it would be harder for me to say, like, what does Daigneault not do well? Like some coaches are, they're weird with their rotations. Maybe or their
narrow down his rotation might be.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sure. But I think he's pretty clearly, he's gonna win it. And I think he should.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to reveal both our top. We have the same top 3. They're just in different order. I had Joe Mazzulla at 2, Jamal Mosley at 3. You had Jamal Mosley at 2, Joe Mazzulla at 3. I think even with the talent Joe Mazzulla has had, the Boston Celtics have obliterated expectations. And as we already kind of mentioned with the executive of the year stuff, those trades weren't a given. Not everybody necessarily loved or thought. I was a skeptic. I thought they were going to be at a playmaking deficit. Because, and even if you thought Drew Holiday was an upgrade from Marcus Smart, it still felt like they didn't address the primal need. And in some ways they still haven't. But like, was this team on paper supposed to be one of the best teams in NBA history? You couldn't have just some of the things that factor into that is good health and stuff, but the way they've used Porzingis is good. The way they've got Drew Holiday to buy into a lesser role on the offensive end, a smaller role, whatever you want to call it. They've like upped Derek White's volume as this on-ball creator for others. Mm-hmm. I think that he's done a fantastic job. And then Mosley is, I know some of this has to do with the injuries that are in the East, but like the Magic weren't supposed to be here. Maybe you could have said, oh yeah, they'll have an elite defense. Are they supposed to be competing for home court advantage in the first round? And again, I would when you look at their offensive struggles, I think the fact that he is able to carve out so much space for their drivers, for Paolo Banchero, that things aren't worse for those guys is a testament to what he does.
Yeah, Mosley climbed the most for me. I don't think I had him in the top 5 last time. and that was because like I think I was holding the offense against him, while acknowledging that the defense has been awesome and just like you said, the Magic have outperformed expectations. I just think the Magic's offensive problems are just personnel. Like
Yep.
I don't know that there's a coach that is going to get this group to have like a top 10 offense or anything close to that. So I think with the players he has and with really young guys occupying a ton of high leverage spots, I think he deserves to be up there. Yeah, him and Missoula, like I'm not going to quibble between those two. I think just Missoula has so much talent. But like he had to organize it. So he had to figure out how to use Derek White the way he's using him and so on. So both awesome jobs.
Do you think either of these two have a case to win it over Mark Daigneault?
Yeah, but I think the momentum is definitely like in Daigneault's favor. Although like I think if you're yeah, they have a case. I just don't think it's like if I would put it this way, I'd be really surprised to meet someone that said like it's insane that you have Daigneault over either of these guys.
That's fair.
Whereas if you flipped it, it's like, well, I don't know. I think it's.
I think Missoula has the strongest case by virtue of coach of by far and away what has been the best regular season team.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to reward the guy or whoever is responsible for like real greatness, and that's definitely like the Celtics are at that level.
We have the same final two candidates, just in a different order. I had Chris Finch at 4, Tom Thibodeau at 5. You had Tibbs at 4, Chris Finch at 5. Do you want to? What was your logic for the way you ordered that up?
Yeah, I kind of moved Finch out of this number 2 spot just because the offense I think is underperforming relative to the personnel it has, and the defense seems. Yeah, I guess it's more just like it's harder for me to point to something that Finch is doing that is making the Wolves as good as they are. Whereas like with Daigneault, with Mosley, with Missoula, it's a little easier. And with Tibbs too, I think like the Knicks are a weird team and he's just sort of figured out, in addition to getting them to play really hard, how to make this work. And I think that's like, I don't know if another coach is getting out of the Knicks what Tibbs has gotten out of the Knicks during this season.
The thing that I guess I struggle with Tibbs, he absolutely belongs here. I want to make, but like, we're just going to fair game on criticism. If you put a coach in here and said, hey, you're going to play Josh Hart over 42 minutes per game post All-Star break, or hey, you're going to throw Miles McBride and Jalen Brunson, you're going to like ride those guys maybe into the ground, like how much of that should factor against it? And then you kind of dig into it, and it's like, in terms of players, I mean, like just looking at their minutes in March, but this isn't the whole season. But like looking at their minutes in March, Dante DiVincenzo 37 plus, Miles McBride 35 plus, and then Josh Hart almost 42 minutes a game. He's actually done a pretty good job not overusing Jalen Brunson when you look at minutes per game. There's no just, I think the fact that he's known when to like kind of stick with Isaiah Hartenstein in the middle. The Knicks do play smaller, I think, on the wings than a lot of people would prefer them to, but he's the fact that he's indulged that. But then I come back to, well, has he given Bojan Bogdanovic enough of a fair shake after getting him from the trade deadline? Did Quentin Grimes get enough of a fair shake? That was just the splitting hairs thing here. And then when I look at Chris Finch, it's okay. The fact that he has able to have this defense just absolutely flying around. Also the fact that you were able to get this season out of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the fact that you were able to get this season out of Karl Anthony Towns, even defensively. And so you can like kind of quibble over some of the lineups that he's run, and then their offense, they don't like to run a lot of set plays, and do they have the personnel to do that? I just think when you look at where this team was last season, in part because of injury, but based off to where they are now, like he could easily be like if you had him 2 on your, I don't know if I could make his case over Mark Daigneault, but maybe you could. I mean, just look at like the Wolves are competing, right there at the same level as the Thunder. So
yeah, I think I had him at 2 or 3 last time. So I get it. We got to mention like Eric Spoelstra is not on either of our lists. I think we both agree he's the best coach in the league.
I had him at number 3 last time, and it's just
he's a given, And I think Ime Udoka deserves recognition, and I think Nick Nurse deserves. And I guess you mentioned Bickerstaff too.
Bickerstaff it has the weird case. The toughest cut for me was Ime Udoka, and am I penalizing him because his team hasn't won at the same level as these other ones? And then they weren't supposed to. And look at where they were just last season with, by the way, when you look at some of their most used players from last season, 3 of those dudes are still factoring very prominently into what you're doing.
That's a
when they're
great
healthy.
point. That's a great, like, doing more with the same guys. Yeah, that's right.
Uh, our listeners had they were in lockstep with us when you look at there's a surprise. I'll call it a surprise. I was actually surprised at how far down Joe Mazzulla finished, but Mark Daigneault at 1, Chris Finch at 2, Michael Malone at 3, Jamal Mosley at 4, and then Joe Mazzulla at 5. Michael Malone, do you think he deserves like that level of? And look, it was close enough to where it was like I'm sure we had maybe Nuggets fans like found the link and they were really upvoting that. They're considered no worse than this team's second most likely to win a title.
Yeah.
And he has had to navigate the weird, okay, our bench is unproven. And I figured out, like with the season that Peyton Watson has had, he's kind of on the periphery of the most improved player discussion. They've been able to navigate a bunch of weirdness from Christian Brown this season. He's gotten away from putting Jamal Murray and Reggie Jackson together. It feels like he's been more experimental with Aaron Gordon at the 5. Do you think he doesn't get enough credit for what he's doing?
I think probably that's the case, but it's also because I think the sense is that, like, well, how much does he really have to do? Because Jokic is on this team, and like Jokic, you know what I mean? Like it's the kind of how
But then
much.
it's like, well, then why does Joe Mazzulla finish so high up? Look who's on that team.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think I think it's a little different because Jokic, I think, is regarded as just like he'll just figure it all out, you know, in a way that like the volume of talent on Boston might, you know, isn't viewed as necessarily being able to do in quite the same way. But yeah, I think like credit Malone for, you know, like what the knock on Jokic and the Nuggets up until they proved it wrong was that, like, well, this defense is never going to be good enough. And like he had a hand in making it good enough with the way they use Jokic defensively, with the way they move Gordon, you know. But I think it's just a talent thing, especially with Jokic, where it's like people are reluctant to maybe give Malone credit because it's like, you know, he's winning all the races, but he's got the fastest car. So like, how much credit does that deserve?
Yeah, I think that's
I'm
fair.
saying that's my opinion, although he's not in my top 5. So
It's funny that I
really.
put you on the defensive with this, and it's not like he was in my top 5. I was just
No, it's just like just a question. I think it's legitimate. If we think the Nuggets are the team most likely to win a title, we probably should have their coach up here, but I don't know. We don't. So
6th man of the year next.
yeah, let's do it.
This is, I feel like, is it like too easy of a? I don't want to say too easy. That's a stupid way to frame it, but like it wasn't that hard for me to say, especially. I mean, it was kind of hard for the top 2, but other than that, it wasn't super hard for me. So who did you?
Well, we
have?
disagree at the top because I have Malik Monk at number 1 and you don't.
That's a great way to, but we do have the same top. Should I just reveal it? We have the same top 3, don't we?
Same top 3, yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at the top 3. So I have Naz Reid number 1. I have Malik Monk number 2, and I have Norman Powell number 3. You have Monk 1, Naz 2, Norman Powell 3. And so the difference for me, at least, is when it comes to Naz and Malik Monk, is I know the value that Monk brings offensively as a playmaker and driver. Naz Reid is just going to fill more gaps, and he's a very good enough scorer when you look at his floor game, when you look at his shooting, that I'm comfortable to say, well, okay, the value he's also going to bring you on defense, as his malleability being able to defend on the perimeter, his rim protection has improved. The fact that he can play next to a big, or I think that now we've gotten to a point where we've seen, hey, he can get some minutes away as the lone big on the court, matters a whole bunch to me. And then it is funny. We had this, I don't think it was on this podcast. It was on the previous an episode we recorded last week about, oh, why is Nickeil Alexander-Walker not considered the 6th man in Minnesota? Should he be here? But I just view Naz as kind of filling, I don't know if he fills more gaps than Naw does, but I would call him a little bit more, like Naw has the passing, but like Naz Reid feels like more of a threat to score from like all these kind of different levels to me. But yeah, he was my pick last time, and I'm sticking with him. But this was tough because Malik Monk has been spectacular. He leads the league in assists off drives. And that's just wild because you have to consider how many drives Luka, Shea, those guys have used compared to Malik Monk.
Yeah, the only guy in the league averaging more drives per game in fewer minutes than Monk is TJ McConnell. And TJ McConnell's drives are just different. Like, they're not the same as what Malik Monk is doing.
Right.
Yeah. So Reid, I think a lot of what I would say to credit Monk, which is that like, he's really not like the 6th most valuable guy on his team. Like, he is in the top 5. And you see that borne out in like there's 12 players in the league with more fourth quarter points and assists than he has, and they're all stars other than like Cade Cunningham and Kobe White. Ridiculously high assist percentage on drives, like we talked about. So it's like this guy's really a starter, and also more importantly, like a closer. Like he spent a bunch of time in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring until he kind of fell off. 98 clutch points. But you could say all this about Reed too, because as a starter, Reed is averaging like 19 and 6 on 60% true shooting. So it's like that's good. That's great numbers for a starter.
That's part of his sixth man's role, by the way, where
Yeah.
he's had to come in and they haven't started him. Has he started every game that Towns has been out? I don't think he has.
I think he's got like 10
only had 10
starts
starts
on
on
the
the
year,
season.
10 or 11. But so he like it's kind of the same argument in a different way for both of them. I just feel like Monk, I think I value the playmaking and like
That's
the initiator role a little bit more than Reed, but like Reed's numbers are kind of unassailable. So no issue there. I think is it for Powell for you? It's just like he's the ultimate like old school yay points. He makes and takes a lot of threes and
But he
slashes.
doesn't. But it's also like he does it efficiently. Where it's
Right.
like, hey, here's this rim pressure, and I'm going to shoot a bunch of threes, but actually make them. It's not kind of like,
It's not Lou Williams, Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, it's like not that type of chucker volume.
Mm-hmm.
And so like him and Bogdan Bogdanovic, the playmaking from Bogdan Bogdanovic is a big one for me. And his ability to like kind of still force defense into rotation even when his off the dribble jumper isn't falling. So we both had him at number 4. So we're in lockstep with our top 4 guys. I kind of feel like if there was if it wasn't gonna be Nas or Monk at the top for you, I mean, we have Powell 3, so it would be him. But like, do either of these 2 guys have a case to beat out the 2 guys in front of them, or is there a clear separation there?
I think there's a pretty clear one too. I like Bogdanovic. Yeah, you said it. Like he's the combo guardie. He's really more of a 2 these days. But I don't think his impact as like to me, since I have Monk first, I'm comparing everybody to him. If I'm considering like what the pluses and minuses are, like I just don't think his impact as like a play creator is on the level of Monk's. So yeah, I think I feel like 1-2 is pretty locked, and I think 3-4 is pretty locked. Like my 5th guy is just a very different player that I think you couldn't, because of the minute totals, you just can't. It's John Isaac. You just can't kind of like put up any higher than this.
But you could, because the game's requirement doesn't apply to this award.
It doesn't, but in terms of like net impact, it's if you're playing 15 minutes a night, it's just not the same as guys that are playing twice that much,
Yeah. So I mean, the defensive impact is undeniable for him.
I have some stupid Isaac stats for you after you give your 5th guy.
So I have Isaiah Joe. I don't think his minutes can be all over the place a little bit, which is why because I initially I think had him higher than Bogdanovic in the last time we did this, but they've been pulled back or they've just been more inconsistent. But you look at what he's able to do. Yes, we know what he does is like a movement shooter, but like this is a guy who sets screens. He'll make his threes. He can put the ball on the floor, get moving inside the arc. And I do really think he's not a great defender, but he busts his ass on the defensive end. If his minutes were up there, I'd probably consider putting him above Powell. So if he was like playing more of like the higher stakes moments for them. But yeah, that's where I ended up with him. And before you just get into some of your Isaac stats, just some other names to kind of consider here. I think Duncan Robinson's going to end up starting too many games. Brandon Brzezinski could still be right there technically. Jaime Jaquez. Al Horford's a good one. I feel like he might have deserved more love. Tim Hardaway Jr. Did I say Jordan Clarkson, Karis LeVert, TJ McConnell, even Walker Kessler, Bobby Portis this year. Those are all names that both of us considered.
Yeah. So Isaac, real quick, like I think he's been the best other than Gobert, and honestly, like would have a case against Gobert as a best per minute defender in the league. It's just like his ability to make guys miss. So opponents are shooting 40.2% when he's the primary defender. He's getting about 6 shots defense per game, which is not high, but that is by far the lowest field goal percentage allowed of any defender who's played at least 50 games and has defended that many shots per game. So like it's a low threshold, and he's just like, you don't make shots against him. And at the inside 6 feet, he's allowing 43% conversion rate. Gobert's at 48. Like like that's, the sample's tiny, but that's like unheard of. 4.1% block rate, 2% steal rate. Those are 100th and 94th percentile figures for his position, respectively. He just like, you watch him play. I can't believe he can move the way that he can after all the injuries he's had. But the guy's like a premium A+ rim defender that can still move around the floor, which is just like, I mean, he just can't, the minutes just may not ever be there for him. But I wanted to just throw him out there because like he's the best like low minute player in the league, I think, by a pretty considerable margin.
Our audience had some interesting names here. Malik Monk, number 1, Nasri, number 2. So they were in Powell, 3, Bogdan, 4. So they were in lockstep with you. Brandon Podziemski, number 5, got some love. I will say the other names that we received, TJ McConnell was on some ballots. There was Peyton Watson and Christian Brown. There was also, I don't understand this at all, Michael Porter Jr. and Tyrese Maxey received votes. I don't.
So I think we got some Nuggets infiltration with Brown and Watson, and then MPJ somehow shows up, even though has MPJ come off the bench ever?
Was that?
Has MPJ come off the bench like once this year?
Oh my God, I don't think
somebody's
so.
messing with the votes. Are these Dominion voting?
He has. He said, yeah, all 75 games have been. Oh no, he came off. He hasn't come off the bench like in the past 3 years at all. So that's just bizarre to me. We had This Shouldn't Be a Thing was also on the ballot.
For 6-man? Well, I mean,
Chris Paul made an appearance. I did say TJ McConnell before. The Podziemski one is interesting. I didn't really consider him because I would have considered Duncan Robinson more too. But like when I kind of just looked at how many of their starts were creeping up there, I couldn't get to that with Pods. But if you're just going to view it as, hey, Brandon Podziemski has started, what is he at now? 33 starts or something? If you're just going to say, hey, that's less than half the season. He's at 27 starts. So if you're just going to look at that number and say that's enough for me, I think that's fine. He's certainly like not to appear on the top 5 ballot is not egregious at all. The fact that there could have been 2 rookies, him and Jaime Jaquez, like to appear on here, and like Podziemski's not starting the past 5 games or something. He's come off the bench, right? So
yeah,
I totally get his inclusion. I do not understand MPJ or Tyrese Maxey being here though. That I'll say.
Let's do. What do we have left? Rookie of the year and most improved. I think we should leave most improved for last. Let's do rookie.
This one, man, this was tough. I'll be interested there.
It's Wemby at the top for me.
Whoa!
So we're interested to hear you because you had Chet number 1 last time. I think
and so I did reverse it this time. I have Wemby at 1, and I said that on the last podcast that when we were recording it, I was still kind of just in the mode of, okay, well, look at what Chet has done all of this season. We can't just dismiss the entire body of work. And I think there are people that are still going to vote for Chet as number 1, which is ultimately fine. But here's what I can't square. When you just look at what Victor Wembanyama is doing versus what Chet is doing for the team he's doing it on, like this is someone like Chet is no worse than the 3rd most important player on what might be the best team in the Western Conference. That is wild, and that has to matter. But I do think the scope of Wemby's role covers more. Chet is more than a specialist on offense, but like Wemby's hitting pull-up threes, that's his role. So I don't want to penalize Chet for playing around pretty clearly superior talent, but like I don't think he can anchor the defensive personnel that Wemby has around him, where it's Devin Vassell and there's Jeremy Sohan, but like you don't have a ton of great defensive talent around you, and yet the Spurs were the 80th percentile defensively when he's on the court. And I by the way, for basically like more than half the season, the Spurs have won the minutes that Victor Wembanyama has been on the court. And so he might not be playing in a ton of higher stakes moments, but the Spurs are winning for most of this season, the minutes that he has been on the floor. That's a big
argument for him right there. Like if you forget the highlights and the numbers, it's like, that's impossible. Like you got to be so good for that to be true.
Yeah. It's just so it really is a fascinating case, but I mean, like, just everything he is doing. So when they made him their starting 5, 22 points, 4 assists, while increasing his true shooting percentage from 52 to almost 59. We've seen some live dribble passing from him that shine through, and it's beyond just kickouts. He's downing during this stretch, Grant, 41.8% of his pull-up triples, and this is covering 47 games. That's the 4th best mark among everyone who's attempted at least 100 pull-up threes in that span. That's fucking nuts.
And he's taking deep ones. Like he is
Ju-
not afraid of the logo three. It's not like
Look,
he's just
it's just no
getting
shade
clean
at
looks.
Chet. It's just it's supposed to be the best. I mean, this also happens to be the Wemby's should have the better career if he's healthy. Wemby's been the most impactful rookie this season now. We've played enough of it to where we're talking about samples. When we were last talking, it was a little bit less than half the season. It's more than half the season. And like that just has to matter for me.
Yeah. I just the numbers, I want to almost like give Chet some flowers because I think in a lot of years he'd be running away with this. So like if you do a bunch of the just points, rebounds, assists, blocks, averages, like Wemby is just on pace to do the first thing ever, basically, right? Like he's putting up rookie numbers we've just never seen before. But if you just take Chet and say round him down, 16 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, there's like a dozen other rookies that have done that. And then if you just filter it for guys who make any threes at all, there's like 2. And so like Chet is, we would be talking about Chet like he's, oh my God, he's the best rookie since whatever, if not for Wemby. Because and he's also impacting winning, like you said, which is, it's not fair to Wembanyama. God knows what the Thunder will be doing if they had Wembanyama and not Holmgren. Like that's a fun thought experiment. But
Especially Chet and Wemby on the same team. That holds. Do opposing teams even score 90 points a game?
I don't think layups would be allowed, like under any circumstances on that team. I think the rest of the ballots where it gets a little more interesting and it's kind of a, choose your flavor.
I was going to ask you, we both have Brandon Miller at 3.
Yeah.
But do you think there's a case for someone else to appear there?
I mean, if you go with the numbers, like if you're in the advanced metrics, I think there's a case for like a lot of guys to be ahead of Miller. Like Pods, I think probably should be number 3 if that's all you really care about. And then Amen Thompson made like a really late push. He's got positive box plus minus, which not a lot of rookies have. I think of the next chunk of guys, some of the advanced metrics like Thompson the best. But like I think Miller, it's an eye test thing. Like he's the big wing that can get his own shot, is going to be a good defender, is just a more complete player with a higher ceiling than most people thought. It's just, once you leave the Miller spot and go down to like Pajemski, even Jaquez, Wallace, the Thompsons, Lively, it's like, yeah, there's some good starters there, maybe, probably. And the Thompsons, certainly the upside is like, who knows? But like Miller is like, if he's not an all-star several times, it'd be surprising, right? Whereas with the rest of the guys, I think what they've shown doesn't rise to that level.
Yeah, and Miller's defense really sold it for me. Like, he's shooting 47% on his pull-up 2s. That's good. 39% on his catch and shoot 3s. And the fact that he's maintained that where you're not getting teed up by LaMelo because he's barely played, but just the defense, the pre-ball pressure, the ability to chase after motion guys. They've also had to use him because of like Mark Williams really not playing a ton this season. He's second on the team in shots contested at the rim. And this is fascinating. I'll probably regurgitate this stat because I find it so fascinating when we do our all rookie teams. So there are 470 plus players who are under 6'9" that have logged time this season in the NBA. Miller ranks 6th in the number of shots contested at the basket among that group. And so it's just like he's wearing a lot of hats for a rookie defensively, and I think it's flown under the radar a little bit because of how bad Charlotte has been and just how many injuries they've dealt with. And so he was an easy number 3. Who did you have at number 4?
So I have Pajemski at 4. I think I would have felt a lot better about this like 6 weeks ago, maybe. He has some real, like, there's going to be some real hurdles for him. Like finishing at the rim has become really difficult. He's just not athletic enough. Getting his own shot off when just closely defended is hard for him. But like just a phenomenal rebounder, makes the right pass all the time, is super unselfish, plays incredibly hard, like all that stuff. I think he's going to stick in a rotation for a long time. There was a minute there where it was like, oh, this guy's going to be a starter for sure. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Just because athletically he's pretty limited, but I think he's got the intangibles. He's going to be a good defender just because he's smart and he plays hard and knows where to be and is super aggressive. So I thought he took over a starting job for a guy that the team really did not want to bench. So like that's a big factor too.
So I had I'm gonna go my 4 and 5 because I ended up not putting pods in my top 5. I had Jaime Jaquez 4, Case and Wallace at 5. The Jaime Jaquez case is just like he's a when we talk about connector types, it feels like they're almost always like these guards, and he's a
Yeah.
connector wing or forward, however you want to consider him. The defense is there. He will come in. He will bust up entry passes. He'll get in he'll fly into these kickouts to the corners, and he'll ruin those. We've seen him cover some pretty tough assignments. Offensively, the numbers aren't going to drop off the page, and he's not, he's under 32% from three this season, but he scores efficiently in general, 66+% on his paint touches, is scoring above average at the rim from mid-range in transition on post-ups. We've seen him drop some really nice dimes on these live dribbles. And the fact that he is kind of figuring out a way to mesh offensively with the Heat again, that we've seen him hit higher peaks from three too. Like he's had some pretty good splits, but they've also been uneven. But to be this good defensively as a rookie, which also, by the way, and this leads into why I have Case and Wallace here. Some things, he's a regular member of what might be the best team in the Western Conference as a rookie. His defense, he's able to guard up. He can really get into the ball. He's another player who's going to be tough to screen, and then he fits like a glove on the offensive end where you almost want him to take more shots, but he can hit his threes. He can attack in space, and he can make some nice passes. Like we've seen some gnarly footwork when he's in traffic, even after picking up his dribble. And so you want that to get better. And I know his minutes are going to pale in comparison. And look, if we do this exercise, when we do all rookie, I might flip flop and have Amen Thompson here. But like Casey Wallace has the minutes and games played advantage right now. And the fact that the Thunder are just so good and he's a regular member of that really sealed it for me. And also just, we talk about this with Chet, with Wemby, with Jaquez, with Wallace, Amen Thompson, Asar Thompson. Has there ever been a rookie class that was just this good defensively in the aggregate? I mean, Chet obviously didn't come from this draft class specifically, of course.
It's wild. Yeah, no, that I didn't really thought about it that way. There's like, I mean, all the guys we've listed on both our ballots are good defenders. Like, and there's way more down that aren't here that would count. Speaking of, I have Amen Thompson at 5, and like the playing time is not, as high as you might want it to be. This is almost like I want to be on the right side of history pick. Like I need to get this one on the record because what I've seen of him now, like you started out the season hurt. So it was like kind of took a while to come on. And then I think the Şengün injury opened up some opportunities for him that weren't there before. But like athletically, we a lot of the same things we said about Asar early this year. It was just like this guy is 100th percentile, like in just terms of pure NBA athleticism. Like he stands out on a floor with 9 other like superhuman athletes. He's a really good passer. He's going to block a ton of shots. He's going to get a ton of steals. The shot is not there, like full stop. I think, I don't know how I would rate. I think he probably has a higher likelihood of becoming a decent shooter than Asar does, but neither of them have great outlooks there. I just think the idea of him as like, he might be your point guard someday. He might be your power forward someday. He might be both. It just like he's had moments that a lot of guys, no one really on this list, maybe other than Wemby, like the jaw droppers. Like I think he's just had some phenomenal athletic highlights that I just can't get out of my brain.
His offensive rebound, 11% offensive rebounding rate is bonkers. And this is a crazy number. And there's another stat I'll probably regurgitate when we do all rookies. So among every player age 22 or younger who's as tall or shorter than Amen Thompson, so 6'7" or smaller, here's the full list of players to clear 20 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 1 blocks per 100 possession. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and John Wall. And now Amen Thompson.
Pretty good. John Wall, look at you. Get in there, John Wall. It's the blocks. Great shot blocking guard, John Wall. Yeah, you want to mention a few guys? There's, a handful that I think we're fairly close here.
There's, Gigi Jackson certainly belongs in the discussion here. Cam Whitmore, had he played more, could be someone that sneaks into this conversation. I didn't have pods, obviously. So he definitely deserves in. And that was just like, I don't know. There's been, I probably just don't trust the offensive efficiency enough from him or the ability to generate his own shot. Asar Thompson, had he played more, Derek Lively, the second injuries, and then kind of the trade deadline that shrunk his role a little bit. Bilal Coulibaly, someone who deserves another mention here. Keontae George, I definitely don't think he's really in the discussion to be one of the top 5 rookies at this point, but he's had to shoulder a pretty complicated workload in Utah. Am I forgetting anyone that should probably get a shout out in this rookie discussion?
I think we got it.
Duop Reef, Tumani Kamara, those are Samantha Black, like those are, but nothing this high end. Are you ready? So there's only 2 people to appear on the listener ballot.
What?
Wemby 1 and Chet 2. Because I just asked for their winners because it would have taken too long to tally.
If that's the criteria, that is correct. Those are
that is
you should be thinking of.
That's absolutely no. Shout out to the audience. You guys did a great job here.
All right, we got to go to most improved. That is our last award.
We do, because that is in fact the last one that we have. So good call.
Yeah,
look
thanks. At you. Can do the alphabet. Can do process of elimination. Okay, so I'm fascinated because I feel like you talked me into putting this guy number 1 a little bit. So I have Jalen Williams number 1.
Wait, so are you asking me to make the case for your number 1 pick?
No, I'm just telling you that, and I want you to explain yourself. Why is he not on your ballot?
I will say he's not going to appear on my ballot because I stuck to my guns that I'm not going to put a second-year player on here. But my God, he came so close to, and if I was going to pick it, it just would have been him, because it's just like, that's how much he's improved. Just the off the dribble jump shooting, the defense. He might make an all defense team. He's been that good defensively, the passing, the ability to kind of prop up lineups without SGA. I can't say enough good things about. And look, there's more directionality to the way he's attacking. Like, there's still that abruptness, but there's more of that deliberation and methodical approach.
Yeah, I think the argument is like, yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle because the second-year player thing. But I think in his case, he just has become a different type of player. And maybe it's more of a progression than like he transformed, because he was, he was improving over the course of last season as a rookie. But just like, you watch him now, and he's improved to being one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. His volume is not way up there, but he's 43%. And he's scored more fourth quarter points than SGA last I looked, which is like never not going to be insane to me.
They should trade SGA and rebuild around
Get rid of him. It's just that like his offensive game to me is like complete, because he's a great spot up 3-point shooter. I mean, maybe he's not a 43% shooter, but I think he's also not like whatever he was last year, 35 or whatever it was. He's going to be a high 30s guy. Off the dribble, he can get to his spot and like shoulder his man off of him for a pull up or a spin and like a turnaround, just like the way that superstars do. Like, that's, pick the guy you want to compare him to. There's like, you hear Kawhi, you hear like some James Harden, like shiftiness, like, I don't know, but he does like mid-range individual shot creation. We need a bucket stuff that superstars do. Awesome finisher, like super sudden, explosive athleticism. And then he guards like real guys. Like, he'll guard a lot of like good forwards.
Not fake ones?
Not fake ones. No, he's not hiding. It's like, they're just, if this is on a team with like Lou Dort and SGA, there's no shortage of good defenders. And like, he's the guy that will go get Giannis or whatever, or Zion or whatever it is. He's just, I think to me, Williams is now like a two-way star that's going to make a bunch of all-star games and probably some all NBA teams. And like, that just was not there last year. Like that level, like, we reward teams that, or we say it's harder to go from 50 to 60 wins than it is from 40 to 50 or whatever. This is the 50 to 60 win jump. Like, this is the hardest jump to go from really good starter potentially to like, this guy might be the best player on a really good team someday. So that's my case for him. But then I also, if you don't put him on your ballot because he's a second-year guy and like, you should get this much better, like, I kind of get that. I just think the magnitude of his growth is like more significant than anybody else we're going to talk about, to me.
I think that's fair. I do think Kobe White comes close, which is who I went with, as someone who toggles between this off-ball and on-ball scoring. He's gotten so much better as an offensive organizer as well. When you're looking at his passing, the defense is still kind of iffy there. I went back and forth on whether I should include him at number 1 because spoiler alert now, I have Alperen Şengün at number 2. I grappled with whether this was a matter of him getting better or opportunity. And I do think it's a combination of both. Like, a lot of it is the opportunity, but he got better defensively looking at his positioning. And then you kind of look at his decision-making on offense, where we always knew he was a dangerous one-on-one scorer, but now he kind of knows it and he's getting to that mode quicker and he's handling double teams better. And so you factor that in with just the production where he's going to, someone who's averaging over 20 points and can drive the playmaking of your entire offense. And I think what separates him from sort of other big man facilitators is that he can, I don't like the Jokic or the Sabonis comparisons, but like he can jumpstart the offense in so many different ways and from so many different areas of the court. Like it begins as soon as he can grab the rebound, where you can't necessarily say that with a lot of the other playmaking bigs. So he ended up being number 2 for me, and he does still qualify for anyone who's wondering why. He's going to end up probably under 65 games, but he appeared in 60 before his season-ending injury, and because those 60 games are more than 80% or whatever of his team season at the point, he qualified. So that obscure rule like put him there. He could have won the whole entire thing as far as I'm concerned. I will note, though, my top 2 picks would have been Scotty at 1 and Jalen Johnson at 2. Neither of them qualified, though.
Yeah, I had Scotty at 1 too until the injury knocked him out. I have Kobe White at number 2 for the reasons you said. Like, not sure if this guy is going to be much of anything to like, oh, he's a starting lead guard in the NBA. That's a hard thing to do. I have Jonathan Kuminga at 3. It's a little bit like the Jalen Williams thing where it's like this guy can't stick in the rotation for long stretches. And now I think he's clearly the second, he's clearly the most important long-term piece on the Warriors now. If you're envisioning like the post Steph Curry world, he's another guy that like, talking about the Thompsons, like athletically Kuminga is just on a level that not a lot of guys can get to. I think he's developed a lot more scoring craft. Like he's can score off the dribble in the mid range. He's so quick to the basket, is able to elevate over guys, really good body control. Just like, I think some of this was there. And so this is another case where like finally he got to play and got the confidence from regular minutes to like uncork all this stuff. But like, he's not remotely the same guy he was last year. So I think he also like, I don't know that I believe that some of the other guys on my ballot have like, I mean, some of these guys are already sort of higher to begin with, but like, I think Kuminga has a star ceiling. And that was not like, that wasn't super obvious until this year.
I push back against the star stuff. I just, the consistency with him and just like, I still don't kind of understand what he necessarily is on offense, despite the flashes we've seen. And maybe that's a function of the Warriors personnel and how it's shifted in the lineups around him.
I don't think they know yet either. To be fair, like I think what's been true for him from the jump is that he's real sure that he is a number 1 on ball offensive guy. And I think that's been in the way for him. Like that's been a hindrance to getting opportunities. I don't think the Warriors know yet what they're going to do with him, but it's kind of it is like a Thompson's thing where it's like, he's so athletic. You just got to sort of figure out how this is going to work. But yeah, I think that's fair. I think this, I'm probably biased. I'm not seeing it super clearly. I think he has the capacity to be like a multi-time all-star, like 2-way, like wing type guy, but we shall see.
Speaking of superstar ceilings, I have Duncan Robinson at number 3. So it's probably an atypical choice, but when you look at, this is someone who has undergone like another reinvention to where, yes, the shooting and the motion on the perimeter is still there. Now he is playmaking. Now he just has these games where, Duncan Robinson has like 5-6 assists or whatever it is. And it's not just catching the ball and then keeping it moving. It's, oh no, Duncan Robinson put the ball on the floor. He scored inside the arc. No, he was able to leverage that pressure he's putting on into finding the open guy. This is someone who's just like, he was almost exclusively just, no, don't travel inside the arc, just get up these threes to make that type of improvement. And also, this is where maybe I'm being unfair here. And it's, does he deserve to be sort of a comeback player type thing? This is someone who looked like he was going to be a detriment the past year and a half.
And now all of a sudden, how are they going to get off this contract?
Right. And now it's like, is this one of the bargain contracts? It helps he's shooting 40% from 3 on over 7 attempts per game, but he's also shooting 57.5% on a career high in 2-point attempts. Again, it's only 3 attempts. He's only at 2.9 assists per game. But again, like I've said, there have just been those games where it's, look, Duncan Robinson has 5 assists. And like, yeah, okay, it came against the Pistons, but still. So this is just someone who has improved so much and added enough layers to his offensive game where I felt comfortable saying, like, we need to recognize that, because it's almost, yes, the hardest thing to do is what J-Dub did, or what, when you go from really good player or fringe star to actual stardom. But like, we're talking about this is Duncan Robinson in year 6, and he was very much billed as this one type of player.
Mhm.
And now he's just something that's not completely different because the crux of that game is still in place, but he's added a shit ton more. And he provided glimpses of it into the playoffs last year. But now we're through a regular season, and it's, yes, some of this has been born from necessity, but some of it just makes so much fucking sense because now if someone who's so dangerous from beyond the arc can leverage what he's doing as a playmaker, even scorer at points inside the arc when he has the ball. I'm not even like just so I I could not have forecasted this sort of functional turn from Duncan Robinson. And so maybe that shock is weighing in here. But when you take out Jalen Johnson and Scotty Barnes, and when you look at, I consider Jalen Suggs, and I don't know if he's hitting his threes, but has he expanded enough of his game offensively? There's the full court passing. It would have been nice if Denny Avdia kind of played the way, had more of the volume that he did for most of the season. But it just looking at the crop of talent, I feel like Duncan Robinson's been the most materially measurably different from wire to wire than a lot of the other choices.
He's not on my ballot, but I will say something by the time this goes up, I will have filed for BR, giving awards to every team, and I get to like make one up for each team and give it a name. And my award for the Heat is Where Did That Come From award, and it goes to Duncan Robinson, and it's all based on what you're talking about of like he's got these ridiculous baseline like Smitty fake spins. He got Asar Thompson really bad. It was one of my favorite highlights this year. Like this was not a thing he could do before. And so I think if we're not going to just do, maybe this is a good transition into someone we both have on our ballot. He's 4th on yours. He's 5th on mine. It's Tyrese Maxey, who's the betting favorite right now. He seems closer to, and Şengün for me is 4. We already talked about him. Maxey feels a little too much like he just got more playing time thing. Which is a direct contrast to Robinson, and a lot of these other guys that we have higher. I think this is why we devalued Maxey, is it's like these other guys developed new abilities, and Maxey, his numbers are better, but like ultimately, per 100, it's a little better, but true shooting is down, like not so hot without Embiid. He's on this ballot just because I think you sort of have to put him there. But his case is, to me, different in kind of a meaningful way than a lot of these other guys.
So I agree with you to some extent, but I do think there's a difference in kind of there's this downshifting part of his game that I don't think he always has. It just lacks a directionality and sometimes a deliberateness when he's not going downhill to where can he set up your offense from that perspective. But just the jump in usage and the raw numbers without seeing his efficiency being submarined, his case, had he been able to like bring the Sixers to even some semblance of respectability without Joel Embiid, would be a lot stronger. So I don't view him as an outlier on this ballot, but I do understand what you're saying, where it does feel like the meat and potatoes of his game doesn't look too much difference, but there is to me enough of a visible difference in the way that he's playing, improvement, or at least if you want to call it diversification in his game, that I'm comfortable having him in my top 4.
I think too, he's a much higher percentage of unassisted baskets this year, which is just like that. I mean, that matters because that does speak to like he's having to do things in a different way. Like he's not being set up. He's not the third guy playing off of, a pick and roll swing to a kick out to like a guy's sprinting at him and he's by him. It's like he's creating more stuff. The efficiency dip is pretty significant to me. It was 60.5% true shooting last year. He's down to like below league average now. But yeah, like that's going to happen with a larger role. He's on my ballot. I should stop talking shit about him, but like, it's not quite the same thing to me. Who's your 5th guy? I'm fascinated to hear you make the case for this guy.
I have Cam Thomas, which is kind of another player that you could say like the Tyrese Maxey jump is, he got an actual role and his scoring skyrocketed, but he has turned into, he's up this 3-point clip. This is someone who has been able to draw fouls despite not getting to the rim at this huge frequency rate. And then I also think that he has, maybe it's incremental or marginal, he's gotten better at making reads as kind of this passer. I don't think there's been enough improvement, at least from what I've seen defensively from him. But when you're looking at his offensive game, I don't think it's ever going to get to the point where he's as well-rounded as a Tyrese Maxey, where he's well-rounded as a Kobe White. I want to make that clear. But he's more well-rounded than he's ever been. And I would take umbrage when people call him that, he's just going to end up being this microwave 6th man type. That might end up being his best role. But like I think will get to a point where he can give you more, like this looks like someone who could be better than a Lou Williams markedly better than a Jamal Crawford. I think there's like more of a shiftiness to the way that he's playing and the level of difficulty on his shots now. It's so young. It makes me wonder, okay, like it feels like there's a point where, at one of the 3 levels, he can improve a great deal. And then what if his passing does hit, or he just gives you a little bit more of the, I don't want to say stout defense, but like if he just gives you some more defensive playmaking. And that, he'll be able to do that better if he does wind up coming off the bench one day. But you're looking at someone who has a usage over 30 with a turnover rate below 10. Like that's just not, the other players that doing that this season are Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Brunson. And so like, I know that he's not passing as much as those guys. That's still really fucking hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for him, I lean more towards he's just playing more. Like a lot of his per 100, like you are right. Like his assist rate's up, his turnover rate's down, like that. And that matters for someone that is primarily out there because of his offensive abilities to just like, he's valuing possessions more like that. That's a big deal. I think his scoring rate is like per 100, it's up, or per 36 minutes, it's up a little bit. Hasn't been as efficient this year, even though he's shooting more threes, which helps. To me, I don't know. I guess I'm less in on the idea of him being like a functional defender long term, but like the guy's a bucket. I'm not going to knock him. So you mentioned Avdia. That's definitely I think he was.
You want to hear? Let me see if I can do this in 1 minute. Give you just a list of names that don't appear on my ballot that I did consider for this award. Is that a no?
No, yeah. I thought you were just going to go for it.
Jalen Johnson, already mentioned him, obviously. I had Derek White on there, someone I considered. I also had Ayo Dosunmu from Chicago, in addition to having Kobe White on there. I had Max Strus from Cleveland. I also had Isaac Okoro from Cleveland. I think you could have made a case for in Denver, Peyton Watson, just like off the low baseline that he was kind of working from. Cade Cunningham in Detroit is another name that I gave serious consideration to.
Do you have Halliburton?
I did for Indy. Yeah, I did think about him. I also thought about Aaron Nesmith as well from Indy. Yeah. Golden State, I did have Kuminga. The Clippers, did I have anyone from? No, I don't have anyone jotted down from the Clippers. The Lakers, I think D'Angelo Russell had like a small case. Austin Reeves might have had some semblance of a case, but I didn't give them too much consideration. I did not have anyone from the Grizzlies on there. We know I had Duncan Robinson from the Heat, ended up there. Didn't have anyone from Milwaukee. In Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, those are 2 guys that I think you could make the case for as well. In New Orleans, there's Herb Jones, definitely deserves like an honorable mention shout out in this discussion. In New York, Jalen Brunson, for sure. I think like that's someone. Isaiah Hartenstein, Dante DiVincenzo, just the way the pressure he's able to put on defenses with his shooting now. In OKC, I think SGA has another case. He was my pick last year, but he has a case again. There's J-Dub there as well. Orlando, I think Jalen Suggs. I really thought about putting him on my ballot. I think I mentioned that before. Tyrese Maxey in Philly for sure. No, is there anybody in Phoenix? Grayson Allen. I think he improved enough defensively and as a shooter. Nobody from Portland. Sacramento, Keegan Murray, second-year player type guy. Keon Ellis certainly obviously deserves mention there. I did have Devin Vassell from San Antonio. I know you were kind of disappointed in his season.
I did look at his numbers though again after we talked about that, and he has gotten meaningfully better, kind of like across the board. So
that's because he's a future Hall of Famer. But anyway, Scotty Barnes in Toronto definitely deserves some mention. And I guess you could kind of throw, like, if you wanted to, RJ Barrett before he was dealing with the personal issues, the way he was playing in Toronto versus New York. And then Denny Avdia in Washington made a great deal. Was there anyone on Utah? I guess just Jordan Clarkson because of his passing, or I don't. Colin Sexton doesn't deserve most improved player love, but what'd you say?
Collins isn't terrible anymore. That helps.
And then Colin Sexton, just like, I don't know if that's most improved player type love, but he just had a hell of a season.
Back to peak Cavs, Colin Sexton.
The audience though.
What do we got here?
Who did they have here? Their ballot is more reflective of yours, by the way, I think for the most part. But they had Kobe White at number 1, Tyrese Maxey at number 2, J-Dub at number 3, Alperen Sengun at number 4, and SGA at number 5. So they actually subscribed to that idea that I think he could deserve some love in there. Also receiving votes from them, Jalen Brunson was on the ballot. There was Duncan Robinson appeared there too. Grayson Allen actually got multiple votes. Tyrese Halliburton was there Herb Jones got some love. Jalen Johnson, by the way, would have finished in the top 5 of the audience ballot, but he just didn't meet the criteria, so I didn't want to throw him on there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty thorough. I mean, this one I think warranted the most discussion because it's so hard to like. There's so many different ways.
I'm not sure that I've ever deviated from the betting favorite this late in the season.
No, I keep thinking about that too. It's like, and I want to look for reasons to have Maxey higher, but I just can't get there.
I'm very interested to see how it pans out. Do you think he ends up winning it?
I think he is going to win it. I think he's like, I don't know what actually I do have it right here. As of today, he's minus 340. Kobe White's second at plus 230. J-Dub is like way out, and then Kuminga is fourth with like no chance.
What is J-Dub's odds? Maybe you should throw like a $5 on.
Plus 4,000. Yeah, it just seems like Maxey's going to get it. I think Maxey like came into the year with the momentum for most improved, and then just that never changed, you know?
We're on to stat padding. Let's do a couple guess of players before we get out of here. I have one queued up if you would like me to start.
Hit me.
This is from Austin again. Clue number 1. I was drafted in 2010. That's it. That's clue number. Do you want to take a stab?
Tyreek Evans.
It is not Tyreek Evans.
I don't think that's the right year.
Clue number 2. I am one of 3 players from my draft class who are still currently playing in the NBA/NBA G League.
Wait, 2010? There's only 3 guys from 2010 left? Is that right? That's crazy. Well, I guess. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Clue number 3. I've played for 8 different teams, but more notably played for one of these 3 teams 3 different times.
3 different times. That should be a giveaway. Okay, I don't have it.
Clue 4. In 2019-2020, despite having an optimistic interest from teams in free agency, I decided to go play 1 year in China for a high, at the time, $4 million contract.
1920 went to China. 3 different teams, or played for one team 3 times. That should be like, I should have it off that, right?
I feel like you should have it based off who's giving this as well.
Oh, you said this is from Austin?
Yeah.
All right. Well, now I got to think about it a little harder. What Pacer?
You will get it on clue 7.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just keep going then.
Clue 5. One of the 3 currently active players in the NBA/G League from my rookie class was actually my teammate my rookie year.
My teammate rookie year. Now I'm trying to think of current Pacers, and that's clearly a mistake.
Correct. I will say that.
Who's been on the Pacers 3 times? That feels like,
you know this.
I shouldn't I? Why can't I get it? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Clue 6. Like several other NBA players, I attempted my shot at a rap career and even put out several songs with Lonzo Ball. I did not know this.
Lance Stevenson.
Correct. You knew that? I didn't know about the final clue, by the way, was while having many meme-worthy highlights, my most memorable event was when I blew into LeBron's ear during the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Just one of my favorites. I still refer to that. I love that one. All right. I will give you draft class, give you Kmart. I mean, one of these is like impossible. Okay. I'm gonna give you one I think you'll get. Clue number 1. I was a shooting guard drafted in the 2nd round in 2005, straight out of high school.
I was a shooting guard drafted in the 2nd round, 2005, straight out of high school.
We may have done this guy before.
J.R. Smith?
No, good guess though. Clue number 2. As a rookie, I averaged 6 points a night, starting 3 games and playing in 49. It's probably not going to help you.
No, keep going.
As a sophomore, my scoring average jumped up to 16.5, and I started 53 games.
I got nothing.
In 2008, I signed a 6-year, $66 million contract extension. But 3 months later, I injured my deltoid ligament and suffered a severe ankle injury after a scooter accident. My screw up was that I told the team that I was injured playing pickup basketball. The team didn't like that answer. What'd you say?
No, just not Jay Williams. No.
No, that was like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Team didn't like that answer, so I was suspended 30 games without pay by the team. Still finished the season averaging 19 points a game.
I'm latching onto the scooter accident too much.
I mean, I thought you'd get it on that one. I forget. It might have been publicized as a moped as opposed to a scooter, if that helps at all. All right, ready? Clue 5.
Yeah.
The following year, my team fell ass backwards into an all-time great who just happened to also be a lead guard, but I still averaged 25 points a game.
Can you read that one again?
The following year, my team fell ass backwards into an all-time great who just happened to also be a lead guard, but I still averaged 25 points a game.
Why don't I know this? 6 years, 69 million.
That's a lot of money for 2008.
2008. No.
You're going to get it now. This is like, you might as well just say the name. Clue 6. We were, and this is from Mike, by the way, if I didn't say that. We were a formidable duo, me and this other lead guard, but ultimately the Bay Area was only big enough for one of us.
Oh, is it Monte Ellis?
Yeah. As I was traded for Andrew Bogut, Warriors became a dynasty, and I continued to be the Skittles of NBA empty calorie scoring. Man, I was so high on Monte Ellis, like circa 2007. I thought that guy was going to be so great.
Are you ready?
Player, though.
Are you ready to get into the mind of a psychopath?
Oh boy. Okay, let's close it out with this one.
Well, I'm going to give you, we have a bunch from Mike, so give you at least one more after this.
Okay.
Clue 1. I was a non-American, non-lottery pick in the early 1990s.
Drazen Petrovic.
That is incorrect. Clue number 2. My best career statistical year was in my 6th season on the Eastern Conference team that drafted me, where I averaged 15 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists, while also finishing 6th in Defensive Player of the Year.
Non-American, non-lottery in the early 90s?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. What's next?
Clue 3. I went on to being a pivotal player for 3 NBA title-winning teams as a versatile 3-and-D forward and a consummate team player.
3 title-winning teams. Non-American, non-lottery, early 90s, 3 title-winning teams. Oh, man. There's only so many of those. Okay, what's the next clue?
Clue 4. I have one of the least interesting transaction sections on Basketball Reference. However, the one time I was traded, it was with a Hall of Famer and a first-round pick for Chucky Atkins, Jermaine Jones, Chris Mim.
So this guy ends up on the Lakers? Chucky Atkins, Chris Mim. Oh, man, I'm annoyed now. I feel like I should know this.
Clue 5.
How many clues are there?
2 more.
Okay.
I actually missed on the, I would have gotten it on this one, but I missed one of the films that are here. During my pro career, I appeared in a trifecta of basketball films: Blue Chips, Eddie, and He Got Game.
Blue Chips, Eddie, and He Got Game? Well, so
I used to love the movie Eddie, where Whoopi Goldberg coaches the Knicks. That was like,
oh yeah, I watched Blue Chips a ton. Blue Chips was one of those ones that was like on HBO during the summer when I was home from school. So who's in Blue Chips? Penny Hardaway's in Blue Chips. Shaq is in Blue Chips. But there's I feel like the non-American is like potentially, is it like someone from Canada? Because I'm thinking of like European guys. I don't have it. So I got 2 more clues?
1 more clue.
Oh boy, okay.
Final clue. With a sick 5 o'clock shadow, Grant wishes he had.
I got it. Stop. It's Rick Fox.
That is correct.
Okay, it was a great, excellent red herring with the non-American thing. Okay. Now I'm trying to think. So he won. Okay, yeah, I guess he got the Lakers titles. Yeah, he was there. Okay, all right, good one. Let me see if I have one more for you, just in case here. Oh man, this one is so hard. These people are just out to get you.
Who's this from?
This is from Rubik's Gal.
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 1. I was the first NBA All-Star to be born in Canada. 2. My shot blocking prowess earned me the nickname the Big Cat at Kentucky. My 268 career blocks as a 4-year Wildcat led the Kentucky career blocks leaderboard, even though they only make it to the 153rd spot on the NCAA D1 blocks leaders list.
I got nothing.
All right, 3. I had 4 good seasons in the NBA, averaging close to 10 rebounds and 10 points per game at my peak.
Nada.
All right. Canadian, Big Cat nickname, went to Kentucky. Number 4. Never one to shy away from a fight, verbal or physical. I could dish out the trash talk and the physicality that the 2000s NBA demanded. I once told a reporter that KG was a talker who can't back it up on the court. Interestingly enough, I was an enforcer in a suit at the time with the Miami Heat, the very definition of a talker who can't back it up on the court.
Oh.
I don't remember the KG thing. Oh, all right. Ready? Clue 5?
Yeah.
I made my only All-Star game in 2004, averaging 10.3 points, 13.6 points, or 10.3 rebounds, 13.6 points per game, and 1.2 blocks. So 13, 10, and 1 All-Star in
2004? I don't even have and they're on the Heat at this point?
Yes, I think so. Well, it was on the Heat. He was on the Heat the previous clue. I'm not sure where the 04 All-Star season came.
I feel like I'm not even going to have a guess on this one.
Yeah, so you go out, let's see. It's clue 6. I was all set to go places the following season when I broke the ring finger in my right hand in November. Was never quite the same player, even though I did have one productive year at Milwaukee with Michael Redd, averaging 9.2 points and 9.5 rebounds.
In Milwaukee, can rebound, played with Michael Redd.
I don't remember that either. He did bounce around a lot. So last clue. After a couple of seasons spent bouncing around and 3 more as a full-time enforcer and part-time backup center for Miami, I finished off my career in Toronto in 2012, the first Canadian player to play for the Raptors.
The first Canadian player to play for the Raptors? Why don't I know this one? He bounced around 2012. I think of Raptors bigs.
Yeah, it's I got here through the Canadian thing. I vaguely remembered the Big Cat nickname for some reason. I could picture like his basketball reference page maybe, and the Kentucky thing. But like this guy is, I mean, you've heard the numbers. He's like a low double guy that like was tough.
I don't even have a guess. Give it to me.
Does the name Jamal McGlure mean anything?
Oh man, wow,
pretty deep cut. You've had some deep cuts today. Had a lot of deep cuts.
All right, let's wrap up with one from Mike. We'll do a Bill Walton segment next time.
Okay.
Clue number 1. I was a lottery pick in 97 out of Colgate by Golden State. 1 pick before Tracy McGrady.
This is a Donald Foyle.
Wow.
Not a lot of Colgate picks in the NBA.
Other clues. I played 99 games through my first 2 seasons in the league. Starting 1 during the span, I averaged 3 points and 4 boards. Clue 3, I played in 76 games in year 3, starting 59. What's another interesting clue here from Mike? Over the next couple seasons, my numbers remained relatively steady, which led to me signing a 6-year, $42 million contract in 2004.
Man, that was like peak Warriors. I mean, in the worst way, the Donald Foyle era.
Off the court, I was a political activist and a poet. I did not know he was a poet.
Very passionate about campaign finance reform, Donald Foyle. It's one of his big issues.
In 2013, I wrote my first children's book, was clue 10. And then clue 11, since 2014, I've served as the Warriors community ambassador. That was too quick, so we're going to do another one that he has here. Clue number 1, born in Toronto but raised in the Bahamas, I hold dual citizenship.
Should be able to get this one.
You should.
Is it Klay Thompson?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I attended North Carolina in the 80s and early 90s.
He said born in Toronto, attended in the 80s and early 90s. Okay, I don't have that.
Clue 3. I was drafted in the first round in 1991 by the Celtics.
Is this Rick Fox again?
Yeah, that's what
How do we get 2 Rick Fox questions?
Clue 8 would have been a good one. I purchased an esports team, but left the team after my co-owner made several racist comments. Clue 9, I might be better known for being in every romantic comedy than I am my time as an NBA player.
Well, wasn't he married to Vanessa Williams? I think that was one of the first. She was like Miss America one year or something. I'm pretty sure he was married to Vanessa Williams.
Clue 7 was good. My move to the Lakers helped launch my second career as I started getting major roles in 97, playing a basketball player turned inmate on Oz. I also was on Fairly Odd Parents and One Tree Hill during my time in the league. Since I retired, I've been on Greenleaf and Law and Order. I've also been in movies like Holes and Navy SEALs versus Zombies.
Does it? No, neither Rick Fox one mentioned getting uppercut by Doug Christie just right in the jaw. Remember that? That was, oh man, that was a good one.
Would you like to take us out of here?
Do you want? Should we do some more Rick Fox trivia before we go, or are we good?
That's gonna be the new Greg Buckner.
Oh boy. See, how many different ways can we give clues about Rick Fox? Everybody, thanks for your contributions, especially to everyone who voted in our awards polls. Super fun to get some crowdsourced contrast to our picks. So appreciate that. Appreciate the guest players. Appreciate the trivia. Appreciate your listenership. To grow that, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies, spread the word. As always, close with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.